Today is again a unique day because today the world is celebrating World Kindness Day. People celebrate World Kindness Day every year on November 13th as a part of the World Kindness movement. It promotes kindness among all living creatures across the world. Various countries such as the United States, Japan, India and Australia, among others, observe this day with numerous events. People devote this day with an act of kindness to understand the peace it brings to everyone around them. The mission of the World Kindness Movement and World Kindness Day is to create a kinder world by inspiring individuals and nations towards greater kindness. Media conference with Lal Goel hopes that you will make a practice to do an act of kindness every day. Now coming on our main topic, the joy of giving. Discover the joy of giving and you will discover the reason for living. The greatest joy in all of living is the joy that comes from freely giving. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. But last but not the least, because I, being the chairman of Organ Donation India Foundation, I always believe that the giving is the main thing. So one kind word can change someone's entire day. One kind donor can change someone's entire life. The joy of giving. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, said Mahatma Gandhi. When we give, a hormone called serotonin is activated in our brain and spreads through our body. It feels good. Creating happiness for others, mostly those we love and care for, brings us great satisfaction. But giving comes from a place of balance and maturity. Some people are givers from a very young age. They discover that paying others a compliment is enriching. Others take a longer to realize that they may enjoy more giving than receiving. And others simply will never reach that stage. Studies conducted by psychology researchers Ed O'Brien at University of Chicago Booth School of Business and Samantha Kazir at Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management found that participants' happiness did not decline or declined much slower if they repeatedly bestowed gifts on others versus repeatedly receiving those some gifts themselves. Giving takes you out of yourself. You expand beyond your limitations. When giving results in an experience of love, joy, peace, charity, caring, and self-worth, the process of expansion has begun. To discuss this very, very relevant topic, important topic, the joy of giving, we have a very elite, knowledgeable, those who are authority in their field and those who have vast experience in the life. Panelists are with us, and I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and she is Dr. Vinita Sai. Dr. Vinita Sai is the second woman in the country appointed by the government of India to head Indian Institute of Management, IIM, Bodh Gaya, as the founder director. Prior to joining IIM Bodh Gaya, she was professor of marketing at IIM Raipur and IMT Ghaziabad. She was also visiting professor at Aarhus Business School, Denmark, U21 Singapore, and SP Jain, Dubai. Dr. Sai attended at the Harvard Business School, Boston, US, and Harvard Center, Shanghai, China. She also participated in developing leadership, governance, and management in higher education program conducted by Leadership Foundation for Higher Education and UKIERE in Birmingham, UK. Welcome, Dr. Vinita Sai on our show. Dr. Vinita Sai, the topic is very, very unique. In my own span of about 19 months of this media conference, which I am doing daily, I have not found this type of topic, because for the joy of giving is something which is very unique and which has to be educated or enlightened. Everyone should be enlightened. We would like to know now your views on joy of giving. Dr. Vinita Sai, please.
So A very warm good morning to each one of you, Goelji, Geetanjali, Khalid, Mohanji, Prajapta, and to all the listeners of this such a wonderful conversation today, which is about joy of giving. Uh, Indeed, yesterday when Mohanji talked about that there is this conversation, I actually volunteered and took this opportunity because I think, as Goelji had already mentioned about, that this is you you don't give, actually you don't give, you get it all. And this was one lesson which was taught to me when I look back, way back in my childhood memories. I had a very loving grandmother. So, and I was a very naughty child. So I remember one day we were walking, and as we all know that our grandparents, our summer used to be in the villages. So I remember I was walking with her near the fields, and we actually saw some old torn shoes. And prankster that I was, I actually thought that let me hide these shoes and I'll get that childish thrill and childish, excitement about making a cruel joke on, or making a prank on a villager and getting some fun out of that dreary afternoon it was. And I asked my grandma, should I do that? Uh, Without really dismissing my thought, without really making me feel bad or small about it, she just said very gently that I have got a better idea. And she took out 2 coins from her small bag that she used to carry, and she gave it to me and said, you want to surprise him or you want to have fun with him? So try this. Put these coins in these shoes, and let's sit at the corner and see how the villager or the person to whom these torn shoes belong will react once he looks at his shoes. And I distinctly remember we just sat under the tree. After a while, the farmer came and he tried wearing his shoes and he felt something. When he looked into the shoe, he found a coin. And I still remember the expression. He looked around, thinking, firstly, perhaps to whom that coin was belonging. But when he saw not too many, and we were rather in any case sitting not so much in front of him, so he kept that coin. And then he put his shoe another shoe, put his leg in another shoe, or feet is another shoe. And then he found another coin. And that grin I could never forget. And I also could not forget that how gently and beautifully my grandma had given me one of the most precious lessons which I carry till date. That I, as a young child, wanted to have fun. And there were two ways of having fun. One was kind of playing a prank or troubling him. And one was how I felt when I saw that grin and that smile on his face. So very, very early in my life, I was introduced to this as the theme of this talk today is joy of giving. I really have a lot of gratitude to my grandma for such nicely and such gently teaching me a very, very precious lesson. And lucky as I am, I always consider myself to be extremely lucky because all said and done, it has been said very often that there are only two noble professions in the world, which is teaching and medicine. Because it is in these two professions you actually factually go and touch lives. You actually go and make a difference in someone's life. So that is the reason I feel that I have been really, really a blessed person that I joined the profession where almost on a daily basis, I have this opportunity of getting this fun and this pleasure. And I think I don't pray as much. I don't do any pilgrimage or any ritual because to get that happiness or to get that, as Mr. Goel was mentioning, serotonin, because almost on a daily basis, we get our quota of serotonin. So it indeed is a blessing, and that perhaps entitles me, or that perhaps, makes me eligible to share that how important it is, or how I would say enriching it is for oneself. I'm not talking because, of course, being a part of the educational setup, we don't do much of formal CSR, or we don't do what is typically corporate is expected to do. Because, as I said, we in any case, the nature of our business is such, or the nature of kind of profession that I am in is such, that giving is a part of us. And that too in a public institution, that makes it even more. Because I remember, I don't know, it's again very personal anecdote. Once my spouse was getting, he's a part of IIT, he's an IIT alumni, so he was getting a distinguished alumni award, and I had joined him as a spouse to get that award, and it was in IIT Delhi. And I distinctly remember in the auditorium where we were getting it, it was named after the founder director, that is Dr. Dogra. He was the founder director of IIT Delhi. And in that auditorium, of course, Dr. Dogra wasn't there. He had left by then, but Mrs. Dogra was there. And I could sense it, sitting in that auditorium, sitting in that institution, having seen my spouse being part of IIT, that what a contribution Dr. Dogra had done in his lifetime. Because again, since I'm a marketing professor, as Dr. Agarwal mentioned, and all said and done, being a marketing professor, I can say with so much of surety and certainty that as a nation, if we have been able to create two brands which the whole world recognizes and appreciates and is on awe of, that is IIT and IIM. No matter which part of the globe that you go, the moment you use this three-letter acronym IIT and IIM, immediately people take up a notice. And that is the contribution. So if today, since I belong to management education, there are hundreds and hundreds of professors all across the globe which are doing phenomenally well. So I remember when I went to Harvard, I actually took one picture out of Nitin Noria's, Nitin Noria's bungalow, because as an Indian, I felt so proud that Indians are doing so well. And yes, it is indeed a fact that whether all the top league Ivy schools, it is the Indians who are doing absolutely fantastic there, bringing laurels to the country. And that is that talent which had moved to US to do their PhD long way back in 60s and 70s after getting the necessary training of IITs and IIMs. So if I remember, I was in Germany in '85, and I distinctly remember people used to look us like this and say, "Oh, you brown Indian." And today, if you go to any part of the globe, they look at you and they say, "Oh, you smart Indian professor." So this whole change about perception of India is courtesy in IITs and IIMs, and that perhaps makes my journey at least even more meaningful in this lifetime, because again, between family, we've been able to contribute to the nation 2 to 3 IIMs as founder directors. And as a family, you have no idea how much of pleasure it gives us. I think if I reflect back in my professional career in last 15, 20 years, yes, all our casual leaves, all our earned leaves have gone as it is. We've never gone to LTC. We've never kind of, taken time off, because there is so much of fun. There is so much of pleasure in creating institutions where we know that when a student comes, his life gets changed. I remember last year, IBM came on campus, and once one of my students got placed. And why he was a special student? Because he actually is from the city where I belong originally from. and he is postman's son. So when he gets a 14 lakhs job at IBM, not only his life, the life of his entire family and maybe that mohalla which he belongs to changes forever. And you don't forget those beaming smiles which the parents give you when they come for the convocation, when it is a year gone happily by, when we have been able to fulfill their expectations of not just educating them, but also giving a meaningful employment to them and changing the orbit of the families forever. So this whole, I think, conviction with which I'm saying that there is so much that you gain in giving is basically coming from these experiences which I have felt, that though as a family we may not have done conventional things like or like indulged much in sensory pleasures for ourselves or taken foreign vacations or anything like that, but the whole joy of creating something which is for the larger goodness, which is for the community, which is for the country, and how it has on a daily basis. Like even I think even today, if I reflect back, I think my day starts at 4, and yes, since I know that there's next day also fully full of excitement and full of giving, I usually sleep by 10ish, and so the kind of lifestyle that we maintain is only possible because there is so much of joy that we are getting out of what we're doing. And this joy is when a student gets a meaningful employment, when a young faculty who has with so much of hard work just done his PhD, when we provide an opportunity. Like right now I'm working in an absolutely new IIM and in a terrain which is Bihar. So on a daily basis, I realize that the hard work of my team and the hard work of all that what we're doing is really, really making a difference to this zone. Like I remember when I joined Bodhya in 2015, we were having 13, 14, 30 students and no girls. And one is, as a nation we keep talking about that we must give the due credit to the daughters of the country. We must give equal opportunity to the country, to the daughters of the country. But when you actually become instrumental in it, you realize that what fun it is. So I distinctly remember 2018, sometime in June, I was sitting, and till that time, I had not admitted single girl. And there came a family from Uttarakhand, a very modest family, because that's what the IIMs are all about, because they give equal opportunity to every meritocratic Indian. So the girl was from hills of Uttaranchal, and they had come as a family, and her father was about to sign the form. And he asked me, how many more girls are there? And I still remember with so much of confusion, I said, sir, yours is the only one. And he immediately got up and he said, no, I cannot put my only girl in Bihar and so away from home, this and that. And it took us, I called my entire team. There was luckily a boy from Uttaranchal as well. So we all got together, and for 3.5 hours, we just discussed it with her parents. And I distinctly remember I told her, sir, this is my mobile. I'm saving your number. I may not pick up my family number, but I'll always pick up your, irrespective. And I actually, it was so surprising because we could not convince them that we can keep their girl in a hostel where everybody else was a boy. I actually vacated an office next to mine because that had an attached toilet, which was director's office. And we kept that. I persuaded one of my staff member, who was a young girl, and we made a transit hostel for them in the main academic building next to the director's office. And the joy which I got when that girl got placed in Birla Sun Life and her parents came for convocation still gives me goosebumps. So, and that day when we convinced that one girl, next batch we had 3 girls, and in next to next batch we had 66 girls. So this is how, हम बोलते हैं बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, बेटी को आगे बढ़ के पढ़ाना पड़ता है. और जब हम ऐसा काम करते हैं, whenever we do anything of this variety, the amount of pleasure it gives me. And as today, we are a very, like, here, as I keep saying as a marketing professor, that we are young, so we try harder. But it's a very extremely dynamic team, right from top to bottom. Like, my chairperson is Uday Kotak, my board member is Naika. Today she is a celebrity, Falguni Nair. And when we discuss these things, that how do we get girls educated and how do we give back, because the entire conversation, because these are such accomplished people, so everybody in the entire public institution that is ours, entire brand IAMS that is ours, the entire conversation is that how do we make a difference? So even if we do not have hostels, we always when I had 50, I took 72 students. This year I had capacity for 300. I've taken 500. I said, when you start something with a good intention and see the fallouts of Corona, that somehow the students didn't come on campus. So even if I had taken 500 students, and I know that when an IIM take 500 students, we are changing 500 lives. We are making a difference in the lives of those people. We're giving them, because it is so heartbreaking as a teacher, when you know that there is not much of a difference between 99.8 percentiler and 99.9 percentiler. There's hardly a difference, you just miss your concentration by a few seconds and you miss it. So when you create that opportunity for more students, because India is a land, where you have more students, we know already this year that so many heartbreaks would have happened in Delhi when practically every Delhi college had 100 percentile as a cutoff. So as teachers, I have always felt that, our way of giving should be that how do we create enough opportunities for the youth of the country? Like with 67% population in the age group of 18 to 35, how can we as teachers rest? Because if this time we do not create enough opportunities for these young people, sorry, we will not have Britishers or foreign forces to blame. We will only have to blame ourselves, more as academicians, more as citizens, that how we did not take up this challenge of educating, upscaling, skilling the youth of the country, which is what going to make us a superpower by 2030, which we keep talking about. So again, and in this journey, as I said, the whole pleasure is completely mine. And every day, and I again feel like sharing one more thing, which we have done very recently, that, IIMs were always known for strategy, quantitatives. So yes, no doubt about it, that 60% of my batch is this year getting jobs in edtech and IT consulting, because that has really become big post-Corona. But one thing which we are really trying hard is, and which is also the legacy of the place from which I come, like I come from Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya is a land of enlightenment. We have given the world the gift of mindfulness. So when we came into being, we actually decided that when post-Corona, everybody is so distraught is the right word. Let's try and gift another gift, and which is what we have just established, a Center for Mindfulness. We plan to become one of the biggest reservoir for research around mindfulness. Like today, if I'm so sure some other speaker was going to talk about it, that how there is so much of research which says that the giving gives you back, which is what he was mentioning, that serotonin. Because what happens in that we as Indians know it, but like mindfulness or meditativeness is a way of life, we know it, but We need to conduct hardcore research, get it published, get it verified, and then present it to the modern world. So we thought that it has always been happening. Our wealth has been, our wisdom has been going to Harvards and MITs of the world and getting endorsed from there and coming back to us. So we thought, at least in the arena of mindfulness, let's do some serious research. All that wisdom which is ours, which is Indian, let's prove it here, get it published, so that this legacy that we have, we become a rightful, carrier of that. We further propagate it. So this is one more gift that we've decided for ourselves, that we'll try to give it to the humanity, to the larger world. And when Goelji and Mohanji mentioned about, I thought, let me take part in this conversation, that who knows, I may get some very good connect here who can help me in my Center for Mindfulness, where we plan to give it on a much larger scale to the youth of the country. Because as teachers, we are in touch with them. We have this privilege of teaching them, catching them young and teaching them young, all that ancient wisdom which was ours. And perhaps this is one of the biggest gifts that we can give to the current generation, most so post-corona. So I have always felt that it's not just the wealth which you give, it is also that time, the attention, the empathy, the patient hearing, as I said, research, I said opportunities. You may just choose anything. So being an academician myself, I can vouch, I can guarantee that please try and see how do we give it back to the society. And I've always felt that there is, I perhaps may not deserve to be a director at such a young age, but perhaps the very fact that we've always done it more as an urge to contribute. So that's the reason such privileges have come back to us. So, which again proves that you gain by giving. And in any case, I'm a services marketing professor, and my first class only starts with a very unique exercise, which I try and do with every student of mine. Like in the first 5 minutes only, I ask them, please translate services into your native language, your mother tongue. And whether it is a Tamilian student or a Gujarati student or a North Indian student, like my mother tongue is Hindi, and services means seva. And believe me, as a services marketing professor, I have always felt that that is the biggest lesson that I can give it to my students. Like my granny gave me long ago as a child, I try and give it back to the current generation. And because if we are leading our lives with the theme of service, with the theme of seva, nothing else is needed. And I have always tried to convince the young people that name, fame, money, bigger cars, bigger house, bigger mobiles, everything else is a byproduct. So I think as teachers, it is increasingly more so our responsibility to live a life, because the onus is on us to demonstrate, to teach them, not just by saying, but just by living what we wish to teach them. So that's how I feel as the privilege which I have as a teacher, and privilege that I have as an institution builder, and that too right from scratch. That sums up pretty much what all I wanted to share with the audience. Thank you so much for giving this privilege.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinita Sahay, for giving your views. And as she mentioned, she is at Bodh Gaya, which is the place which has enlightened the Lord Buddha. And it's a place where everyone is going for the enlightenment. And what she has mentioned, how the giving gives the pleasure, the joy, which she got the training or the learning first lesson from her grandmother. Now, this thing, we all know that giving, and as a teacher, she says the teacher's main giving to the societies to teach and give good, inculcate good values in the student. And she has narrated all the experiences, how the girl child, the student, first student, she admitted with so much persuasion. Now this shows that she is not only a director, she is not only a teacher, but somebody who is a giver. And giver is always remembered. I can just give an example of Mr. Puneet Rajkumar. He will be remembered. Yes, he was a great artist. But today the world is talking about his eye donation, that he has given after his untimely death. 4 people are seeing the light of the day. Now just imagine those 4 families, their relatives, their friends, how much they are in debt to Mr. Puneet Rajkumar's family. So everyone, like Dr. Vinita Sai said, it all depends how you give, and especially the teaching and medical, the noble professions in India, and that especially teaching, if you are inculcating good values, giving them the right morals, as she mentioned, that just translate the services in your native language, it shows that you want to give them, and this will, the student will remember the lifelong, as she has remembered about Professor Dogra, the founder director of IIT Delhi. So all these things matters a lot. So the joy of giving, I can understand when she was speaking, how much eternal joy she was feeling. Her eyes were sparkling with joy, and with that, those moments, always, whenever I am sure it might be coming to her, she always want to be in those moments. Thank you very much, Dr. Vinita Sai, for giving such a nostalgic thing. I never become so emotional, but today you have made me emotional, because I believe that giving is the thing. If we will give, we can do wonders, and the whatsoever those Centronian or whatsoever it is, but the real feeling will be, or real joy will be, once you are giving. Thank you very much, Dr. Vinita Sai. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid is presently is the sales manager, after sales, Hyundai Doosan Intercore of Middle East and Africa, covering heavy machineries in the GCC countries. He is a mechanical engineer from the University of West London RAK campus. He has 20 plus years in the field of heavy machinery, dealing with internal and external customers, suppliers, and top management. Welcome, Mr. Khalid, on our show. Mr. Khalid, you have heard what Dr. Vinita Sai has mentioned, and she has given her experiences about the joy of giving. We would like to know your views on the joy of giving. Mr. Khalid, please.
Thank you very much, the media conference with Lal Goel, for the having me today, and thanks are also extended to Dr. Mohan Lal Agrawal for the invitation. And I feel very honored to be among these distinguished guests. And frankly speaking, my speaking is now in the stage of becoming harder after this lovely, wonderful, emotional, informative, exciting speech. So I would handle this topic, wonderful topic of the joy of giving from business perspective. And I would say the joy of giving is could be regarded as CSR. So in this space, I will briefly go through what is CSR, examples of CSR, stakeholders, and CSR, importance of CSR, and I will show 2 best practices in business that I would see as good examples for this. So CSR is the corporate social responsibility. And one of the many definitions show that CSR is concerned with the relationship between companies and the society in which they function. CSR, or corporate social responsibility, as a concept was not always welcomed in business and was subject to a huge debate. Some shareholders would argue that this concept implies additional expenses and reduction of dividends paid to them eventually. In contrast, some argue that every big organization is regarded as a social enterprise. That indicates its presence in the society and its decisions are justified as they help social purpose. So having said that, I will briefly go into some examples of the CSR. CSR covers almost all business areas. It includes a range of activities, for example, sustainability, sourcing with responsibility, which means using fair trade elements, enhancement of working values and conditions, contribution to education and social activities, staff volunteering, investing responsibly in the society, employee community relationship development. So talking about the CSR and the stakeholders relationship, by definition, the stakeholder is someone who is affecting the business or someone is affected by the business. So based on these different groups of stakeholders, different corporate social responsibility strategies can be adopted to help in making positive effect. For customers, for example, as a stakeholder, the positive impact can affect by maintaining or managing the customer service through fairness and open business performance and customer retention. For suppliers, on the other hand, as stakeholders, this positive impact can affect through ethical trading and by selecting vendors with cautious, checking their labor, health and safety practices. For the society, for example, as a stakeholder, this positive impact can affect by conducting environmental practices which will positively impact the society. For staff, for example, as a stakeholders, staff of the corporates, this positive impact can affect through staff performance appraisals. Why CSR? What is the importance of CSR? CSR can help advance business, sharpening the competitive edge and shape trust with stakeholders. Adding to that, cost saving on operations by avoiding unnecessary fees and wasted energy. Most importantly, CSR gives companies and brands a reputable, ethical business and positive image. As per Carlos' pyramid, philanthropy, between brackets, CSR, related to our show today, giving, all are the same level of understanding, is voluntarily. It is not obligatory to do. So based on that, I will try to give two examples, I must say, best practices on this context of business giving or CSR. The first example I will highlight is about General Motors in US. General Motors has set its vision for the future that has zero crashes, zero emission, and zero congestion. Philanthropic investments by General Motors is an important element towards achieving this vision and focuses on people in three aspects. They named the program STEM education. They have another area, vehicle and road safety. And they have the third one is community development. So General Motors is supporting youth from different communities and students from all ethnics by investing in real learning, computational thinking, artificial intelligence, and the digitalization of education under the title STEM education, providing them with future industry-related skills. The second part for General Motors is vehicle and road safety. In 2020, during the global pandemic, traffic reduced sharply. However, a study made by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration concluded that the number of died people in accidents increased by 4.6% from 2019. That research found that this increase is due to an increase in the dangerous habits. Having zero crash vision in mind, General Motors continued to put money in programs and initiatives with the goal to help raise the use of seat belts and safety restraints, decrease the distracted driving, increase the consciousness of effective road safety practices. The last portion of General Motors and CSR activities and initiatives is about community development. And last year, General Motors participated in dozens of non-profit initiatives to help improve the number of people with wanted professional skills and to reduce the number of people facing monetary boundaries. My second example for organizations is from my home country, Sudan. It's a big organization called DAL Group. It's the largest and most diversified privately owned group that offers a wide range of products and services. So social responsibility for DAL aspires to have corporate social responsibility and a strategic competitive edge through creative and value-driven integration into business strategies and processes. DAL has made many initiatives to the society in Sudan. For example, they initiated the school library. School library is an initiative that is essential for human progress as education, social development, and the creation of healthy economic environmental. They made initiative was in 2012 by cooperating with Ministry of Education. A second initiative is the school milk program. The school milk program is one of the important links from DAL value chain, beginning in 2011, giving more than 16,000 underprivileged students in the greater Khartoum area with free daily packs of milk. They made program for apprenticeship program. That apprenticeship program is a structured approach in accommodating batches of fresh graduates from PSCC and diploma levels. Over 600 students have been trained since start. There is a program for Al-Awwal. Al-Awwal means top on his class. This is the initiative name, top of in his class, or Al-Awwal is a rewarding excellence. For the last consecutive 5 years, Sudan top school graduates have been undergo an extensive academic course in English language studies and cultural and educational programs. Another initiative is called 5x5. 5x5 means targeting five SDG or Sudanese Guinea from each staff, up to 5,000 staff each month, deduction of salary voluntarily to avail 25,000 to be given to charity organizations to support the charity. Also, the Joy of Eid is another initiative after Ramadan ends. For the poor families, they give donations. They make medical campus. They make warm winter initiative. They have the road and safety awareness. Last but not least, they make very important breast cancer awareness. They make on every October, they wear the same color to raise the awareness about breast cancer, and they held an event or informative lecture with a survivor story and some tips. So as a closing statement, I would say giving from business perspective falls under the aim to change people's lives for their best possible living standards, which is a win-win situation between the society and corporates, which will also eventually gain competitive edges and profit. I would thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid. And Mr. Khalid is giving the details how the corporates, big corporates are doing the corporate responsibility services like CSR. And according to him, all the big companies, they are doing lots of social responsibility services, which in fact is a win-win situation because society is gaining, the corporate is gaining, and ultimately the country is gaining. But because Mr. Khalid has to leave, so I will just put one small question to you. Mr. Khalid, you have mentioned about the CSR. Yes, it is a very good thing everywhere in the world. But do you think the CSR should be voluntary or mandatory?
CSR is depends on each organization individually. It shouldn't be mandatory. However, whoever as organization decided not to implement CSR, they will lose. They will lose because they will not have the edge in the market, reputation in the market, which is a very important factor in reserving space in the big share of the market share. Because without having this edge, you will be in the weakest side.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, because I asked this question, Dr. Mohanlal was smiling, because in India it is a mandatory. That's why I asked this question. And I think that India is the only country or one of few country, I think it's the only country where the CSR, and once you have a spirit of giving, then there is no mandatory, then the giving is not there. It is just a following or obligate. There's a legal obligatory thing which they are doing. Because earlier in India, we have very big groups, corporate groups like Tata's, Birlas. They have giving so much to the society. All the top medical institutions, all the top educational institutions were there in India because of those legends, or I must say the tycoons, or those philanthropists, really. So the word philanthropist will not be given to those corporates who are under obligation doing CSR. But yes, if they are doing voluntary, then they can be termed as philanthropists. Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Geetanjali Pandit. Miss Geetanjali Pandit is the best-selling author and columnist. She is the former CHRO, the India Today Group. Miss Geetanjali is an award-winning author and columnist, TEDx, and global keynote speaker. She is the former CHRO of the India Today Group, the Indian Express Group, and G Media Corporation Limited. She studies in prestigious schools like Lesley University, USA, XLRI Jamshedpur, and Delhi University. Welcome, Ms. Geetanjali Pandit, to our show. Ms. Geetanjali Pandit, you being an author and a columnist, and you are associated with all the top groups here, you have heard what Dr. Vinita Sai has said, as well as what Mr. Khalid has said.
Yes.
Dr. Vinita Sai has given a new things, new dimension for the teachers or the teaching faculty, that how their giving is not only by giving in kind, but to inculcate, to give good knowledge, good research-based knowledge, and good moral values, and to start those things which are not there, is real giving and the joy. Now, Mr. Khalid has mentioned about the CSR, although being in the columnist and this thing, you know that in India, we claim that those big groups have donated that much money, but that word donation is not correct. They have just fulfilled their legal obligation. They are getting the advantage in their income tax returns, as well as they have to do it because after 500 crore, whatsoever the cross limit that you have to pay 2% or whatsoever you have to pay. Now, we would like to know your views, the joy of giving. Miss Geetanjali Pandit, please.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Goel. Thank you very much to my professor, Professor Agarwal, who's invited me on this platform. And I think the topic is just amazing and wonderful. And I was so touched by Dr. Sahai's story of when she was, when she shared about her grandmother and that small incident which she experienced as a child, the joy of giving firsthand. I think that there couldn't have been a better start to the discussion. I'd like to start by saying that holding on to what we believe is ours comes very naturally. It comes very naturally to us when we are small children. You give a child a toy and say, this toy is yours. And you find that there is a sense of ownership, there is a sense of possession, and there is no desire at that stage to start sharing with anyone else, right? It's only when we grow up within ourselves, it's only when we reach a different stage of understanding of life that we start to look at giving of ourselves, not just of what we possess, which is what you spoke of, the mandatory giving of funds under the CSR issue in our country. And by the way, India does not fare well on the Gallup poll. There is a global giving index, which is done every year by the Charities Aid Foundation. And India does not fare well in that list of 140 countries that they measure giving from every year. I think we understand it very narrowly that to give is to lose. And that is how a whole host of Indian corporates also look at this. Otherwise, why would this have to be mandated for them in the first place? But it is in giving that we expand. So for instance, when we, I go back to my childhood and try and draw an analogy from there. My father was an IPS officer and truly a man who believed that a cop is someone who serves and protects, right? And from service came the fact that I grew up in an environment where there was so much giving happening, by people who were fighting, on the borders. So there's a giving of life, right? There is a giving of self and selfless service, without which the nation cannot be protected, without which even a panel discussion such as ours cannot really be taking place. Something that might interest Dr. Sahai to know is that when the Buddha experienced, because, I'm a researcher on the Buddha's life, and my last book, The Buddha at Work, draws very heavily on the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. Is that at the time of enlightenment, he engaged in an intense struggle on the metaphysical plane with negative forces, which are in Buddhist tradition called Mara. So Mara exemplifies the negativity of life, where Mara said to the Buddha that, now that you're close to attaining enlightenment, why do you have to go out and share it with anybody? You should relish this enlightenment and keep it close to your heart. And it was an intense emotional, metaphysical struggle for the Buddha to say that the fruits of my enlightenment are something that I'm willing to share. I'm willing to share this knowledge, this understanding, and this enlightenment with other people for their happiness, and to take them out of their comfort zone and help them to become bigger and better beings. Giving is precisely that, coming out of our comfort zone, becoming better, becoming happier as a result, since you've shared that bit of research. I'd also like to share a bit of research which links brain scans and MRIs to the fact that giving definitely creates an impact on the physical brain. So it is not actually serotonin that gets released, it's dopamine and endorphins that get released in the brain for the experience of happiness at the moment of giving, right? It in turn creates well-being. It creates a sense of purpose. It creates a sense of fulfillment. And it has been proven that people who volunteer throughout their life, the service that Dr. Sahai spoke of, being in service, leads to longevity and better health over the course of human lives. This is something that the Buddha had discovered for himself and that he tried to share with others. We believe, falsely so, of course, we believe that giving away on the physical plane can lead to a reduction of what we have, be it money or be it possessions or be it something that we'd like to hold on to. Inclusive society, economic wellness, abundance, prosperity, social justice cannot be built, and therefore we cannot all prosper ourselves if we withhold. If we desire to prosper, we must give. In an economic cycle, this becomes much clearer, right? So only when money is put into circulation does society as a whole prosper. If money is hoarded up, if prosperity is held to a few, then we are not building an inclusive society. Going back to my research area on the Buddha's life, it's very interesting to note that Buddha in his previous lifetimes, as is called the Bodhicitta or the Bodhisattva, and today there is a better understanding or a clearer understanding that humanity is composed of bodhisattvas, right? We are all bodhisattvas. The bodhisattva is the defining characteristic of a bodhisattva is that of compassion, right? But compassion must be tempered with wisdom. Because if it is compassion only and there is giving only, and in fact, this is what distinguishes enlightenment from this stage of evolution, because compassion is not tempered with wisdom. So what is the wisdom that needs to get applied here? And I see this in all the work that I do with women leaders and those in leadership positions, is that giving has to first begin with giving to ourselves. And this is especially true of women. This is very true of women who are both homemakers and women who are working in whatever capacity. Certainly very true of women leaders, is that the right note has to be struck of giving to oneself and then giving to others. To what is the gift that we give to ourselves? Time for self-reflection, time for growth, time for health, time for building fitness, time for remaining healthy, time for contemplation, and time for growing as a human being, right? And after that comes an inclusion and embrace of others around us, right? And there's, of course, a natural giving that we experience to those in our immediate environment, our family, our children, And beyond that, to the next tier of those who interact with us, beyond that, the next tier of those that we don't interact with, but society at large. Today, when the world is seized with the larger problem of climate change, this could have been prevented. It could have been mitigated. The results of this could have been mitigated. Certainly, the drastic portents of climate change could have been stopped had we had the respect of giving back to the environment at each level, be it at the individual level of consumption and disposal, or be it at the corporate level of not exploiting resources, being sustainable in our endeavors, and of course on a larger platform of society and countries as a whole. So when we give, we grow, and when we don't, we perish. In fact, I'd like to quote something by Khalil Gibran here. He said, and I'm quoting, "It is well to give when asked, but it is better to give unasked through understanding. For to withhold is to perish." And those are my views on the joy of giving. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Geetanjali, for giving your views. And she has mentioned how the giving is giving the joy. And she mentioned many things about the enlightenment of Buddha and his teachings, because she has written book on that. But one point only I would like to highlight, where she says about the women. And she says that the woman should give first to her and to others.
Yes.
But I would like to add one thing. In my opinion, the women are the main givers in the society. I will give an example of organ donation. In India, 85% organ donors are women. Very unfortunate. No, Ms. Geetanjali, it's a shame on the men, because here the sister will give her kidney to brother,
Yes.
mother will give to son, the
Yes.
daughter will give to father, but the man always think, no, because we are something, we are the family, we are the Kuldeepak of family, we are the main earner, although right now it is not correct. And the recipient are again reversed. The main recipients are only the men, not the women.
Oh.
For women, no one is interested to donate. Now, this is where I feel so sorry. Or, in other words, I feel the joy of giving is more in women than men. Men always feel, as you have mentioned, that if we will give something, it will be subtracted or we will lose something. While women always, from the childhood, we have seen how the mother gives the share of her own food or her own love to the children, to her husband, to the in-laws. This is the true story. At least in India, we have seen it is nowhere else in the world, although we are almost 48% population, more than 48% population of women. Thank you very much, Ms. Geetanjali, for giving your views. So one should give to get that happiness, as she has also explained. Now, I would like to invite my last but not the least panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI, Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is President of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow, Boston, EFMD Fellow, Paris, and British Council Fellow, London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leader. Welcome, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, you have heard what Dr. Vinita Sahay, Mr. Khalid, as well as Ms. Geetanjali has mentioned. And they are very, very clear about the joy of giving. Although I know very well that it is very nice. I'm not talking about our panelists. They have given their own experiences. But if we will see the entire country, we are very hypocrites. We are not interested to give. Rather, we expect that someone should give, whether we expect from government, whether we expect from our bosses, whether we expect from the society. We would like to know from you your views on the joy of giving. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Please unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. First of all, I really want to thank God that we chose this topic today on the day of kindness. I did not know at that time, and I'm grateful to you that you connected the two so well. When we chose the topic, we didn't know, that this is going to be this day. So really, I think it is just as if the stars are aligning. And if the same thing, if I extend further, that stars are aligning, I have known Dr. Vinita perhaps for 10, 15 years, but believe me, it is only in the recent years that I have started listening to her. And each time, this is the second time that we are sharing a platform. But that time also, today also, I think she has left most of us speechless with the way she speaks, with the mind and heart in the right place she's talking. And I haven't seen you speechless, even though I know you for the last now 1 year or more than 1 year, and we are doing this show together for the last 6 months. You have become so emotional that you were, so I think it is all, person speaks on a topic with heart, then I think it shows and it affects everyone. So I want to thank Dr. Vinita really from the bottom of my heart. Now, as far as Miss Geetanjali is concerned, Geetanjali, I know her for the last 30 years or more than 30 years, and she has been a giver right from the beginning. Even when she was a student at XLRI, she was the same Geetanjali that you know today, giving, heartful, mindful, spiritful. I mean, I can go on and on to speak about her. She had a fantastic corporate career in front of her, and she would have been, unimaginable places if she would have continued that journey. But just one day, because she felt that she has to give to certain people, stakeholders and all in her life, she gave all it up. And I think very few people have the courage. And today, I think, Mr. Goel, you also told me something which I didn't know before, and I have to, accept my ignorance, where you said that the women donors are more there than the men. I would always remember this thing, and I would have one more reason to respect ladies for that reason also. So what is the joy of giving? When I thought of this topic and when I brought it for our discussion, I was impressed by one very wonderful line quotation, which was that when you become rich, when you become prosperous, then do not raise the standards of living, but rather raise the standards of giving. I thought that was a fantastic sentence, which telling us that each and every increase in the prosperity doesn't mean for us. It means for others also, for the people around us also. And therefore, I thought that let's talk about this in a little bit more. You see, one research has also validated that the joy of giving is not something that you learn necessarily from your family. Of course, you learn. Of course, that affects. But like food, eating, sleeping, I think the giving is also hardwired in our brain. Even the toddlers who hardly have any cognitive awareness around them, that particular experiment, it was conducted in Canada, in which there were toddlers, and these told that there is a monkey, that particular was like a stuffed toy, and they said that this monkey, stuffed monkey, enjoys taking a particular type of biscuits, and if you give it to them, he feels very happy. And in order to see that, they used certain physical instruments to measure the inner joy among the toddlers when they were doing these things. Number one, when they were not giving anything. Number two, when they were getting, and one was also being given to the, this stuffed monkey. So second stage was that one biscuit to the toddler, another biscuit. And the third was that when they gave more biscuits and said, can you give it to this monkey, and the toddler gave. And the Dr. Vinita knows it very well, and I'm sure Geetanjali also would remember from consumer behavior that we used to have a meter called galvanometer, and that galvanometer would check the blood pressure, the body changes to show whether and what is our reaction to a particular stimulus, whether it could be a joy or fear or any other kind of stimuli, but we would be doing that. So they use the same galvanometer, pipelometer, different kind of physical instruments to check whether toddlers face the same thing or not. And they found that toddlers also had a greater joy when they shared the biscuit that they were given to the monkey or to that stud monkey that they had given. So this is hardwired in our body, God has made us like that. If we extend the same thing a little bit, and many of the ads use that, whether it's a surf ad or any other ad, where one boy is giving it to other, and ye daag achhe hai, ya ye daag bure hai, if you remember what I'm trying, in that also the joy of giving was illustrated in a wonderful way by Hindustan Unilever or many other companies, not just that company only. So this particular thing of joy of giving is extremely very much prevalent in our body, in our behavior like that. Only thing is that we do not use that particular awareness to either identify it or encourage it or even demonstrate it to others. If we take this particular thing a little bit further, individually also, you will see that even among us, there are individuals who have greater pleasure when they share things than the people who just have it. And it has got nothing to do with money only. Geetanjali very correctly mentioned that it is not just money that you can give or gift. You can also give time. I would add one more thing, that if the joy of giving includes the joy of giving attention, that itself is a very, very big deal. So the joy of giving is money, time, and attention. Number of times I have told my children and others also, I said that, listen, when you come home to your parents, to your grandparents, give them these two things, that is attention and time, rather than money only, because thank God, for whatever reason, today's grandparents are much better, I would say, financially taken care of than probably our grandparents were at that time, because of retirement planning, mutual funds, so many other things that they do. So therefore, monetary, they may not require, but they require your love, your emotion. And look at that joy that you will get when they will talk about you in that particular matter. So individually, at every stage of life or life cycle, I think the joy of giving is there. And the medium may change, but the thought doesn't change, the reaction doesn't change. Then Khalid very beautifully mentioned about things related to some corporate companies, because he comes from auto industry. So he gave the examples of auto industries, whether it is Ford or Toyota or any other examples that he had mentioned. I would like to give, just being a student of marketing, I would like to give even the example of Tom's. The Tom's brand in consumer products, mostly for footwear and others. And they give one pair of shoes to the child in need for every pair of shoes that they sell. Now they say it everywhere that this is what they do. There are many companies like this that they do it. Like, for instance, Nando's also does it. If you go to any of the restaurants, Nando's tells about its story, and then they also talk about how they are helping the people in different parts of the world, and how now that particular thing they mention. Similarly, I'm sure that you already know that how Body Shop, that Body Shop doesn't do any advertising on its own. its admirers, its fan following does advertising for them. Why? Because Body Shop has a very, very clear strategy, and this strategy can be taken by a pinch of salt by those people who usually see red in everything, who always suspect everything that it is for the benefit of that company. It may not be. As Khalid very correctly mentioned, that there is a required giving and then there is more than required giving. Now, when you're giving more than required giving, seeing this as suspiciously, I think is also, to my mind, a sin, if not a crime. That why you are, doubting someone who is doing something either as if they are looking for some kind of a gain. They may not be. They are just doing it as Dr. Vinita very beautifully said. I mean, her story of her grandmother was extremely inspiring today. That what she taught her and what she shared with us, the way she said. So even in the case of the corporate bodies, I believe that this giving gives bigger joy to the organizations, as well as this has created a new concept, and that is called corporate citizen behavior. Now, corporate citizen behavior research has shown that the organizations which are giving, employees of those organizations are much, much happier. And I'm sure Geetanjali will bear me out in some way, that how the employees feel good when their organization is shown or seen or perceived as a giving organization, more than necessary than those organizations which are doing bare minimum or just to comply with the law or just to comply with whatever expectations they have. This is what we call organizational citizenship behavior, or OCB. So somewhere I believe that this joy of giving is ingrained in us right from the beginning, and it goes wherever we go, whether we grow up as adults or whether we become managers or whether we become leaders of those organizations. The only thing which I would like to say is that let us try to recognize it. Let us try to inculcate, share it, demo it also to others so that it can go further. This is the only thing I would like to say. And finally, just to summarize that point which I said, that today giving doesn't mean money only. It also means time, and it also means attention. This is the thing that possibly, if you can do that, because I believe that attention is the most expensive currency of the world. You pay someone with attention, that person will never forget you in life. That person will always keep you in your high thoughts. So thank you very much, Goel Saab. Today I'm also feeling very emotional after having listened to these ladies and wonderful context. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. And as you said, the time is also very important, and a paucity of time. So I'm not going to summarize what you said. I will go directly to Dr. Vinita Sai. My question to you is, do you think we should have a curriculum about the joy of giving? Because as you yourself narrated earlier, there used to be a joint family where the grandparents used to inculcate those feelings in us, like you have given your own example. Today, being a nuclear family, the parents doesn't have time, and no one is there to tell the child that giving is the main thing, or it's a very important in the life. Do you think we must include the curriculum in your either from the primary schools or even in the higher studies? What you say about this, Dr. Vinita Sai, please?
Yeah, you brought a very pertinent point, Mr. Goel, that what came as gift of being in a joint family, being in a social setup, which allowed a lot of dissemination of value systems, a lot of dissemination of right kind of behavior, is not available to today's youth. And that perhaps explains, why these words like depression, stress, anxiety have become so very common. There was so much of, I would say, exchanges which were happening within the family setup across all. So without losing focus, let me say that, not just joy of giving, but Indian way of living is something which we as a nation will get back to, because as Geetanjali was mentioning that the corporate and even Khalid was mentioning that this 2% or the very fact that turnover is above 500, this is now coming as a part of regulation or as a part of statutes. But in our Indian way of life, it was always there. Like jo 10 se daan hai, it was always a part of our life. And when we said daan, it was not necessarily just the money. In fact, the entire ecosystem was so beautifully, and that's the reason sometimes, when people talk about sustainability, people talk about all these things, I said, come on, we always knew it, being an ancient civilization. And again, when I say Indian way of living, the very fact that why I say it with so much of conviction is because we've been around for long. The biggest test is test of time. And the way we have been leading our life has stood the test of time.
Okay.
Simple as that. So it's not this way of living or that way of living. It is just the way of living which has stood the test of time. So in my class, so many times I keep telling students, that only thing which as an educator we mistake which we did is we did not teach them in a right way. We so high time include it in curriculum or make it experiential learning, in which is what I said, that why graduations are becoming very liberal in their approach.